Welcome in everybody to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host Michael Darcy, and today I'm joined by Michael Hebner, and we're going to break down the Week 10 matchup between the Tennessee Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs Kingdom, the Kansas City Chiefs just choked in this Week 10 matchup against the Tennessee Titans. The Chiefs lost by a final score of 35-32, and all I have to say is this game was disappointing. The Chiefs practically led this game for most of it, and they lost on a botched field goal snap by James Winchester. And I truly believe that if they kick that field goal through, the Chiefs win this game. But, I just cannot believe what we're seeing from this Chiefs defense. They were better. They were able to force like a few 3-and-outs, a couple turnovers. They were able to get a few sacks. But, at the end of the day, they gave up way too many points to a backup quarterback and an offense that really hasn't been good since 2016. So I'm just furious right now. The Chiefs had this game in their hands and they choked. So, there's no other way around that. What do you think, Michael?
Well, first, we need to acknowledge the fact that Tannehill is not just a backup quarterback. He started for the Dolphins years ago. Sure, he wasn't Mahomes, but he still was a starting quarterback. He's been in these situations before. It's not like he's a rookie who's never played the game. Second is our defense did play great. It's just Derrick Henry is a beast, and you can't really defend him. You can do everything you want, but at some point you're gonna have to, defend the run, which is going to open up the passing game, and then those big passing plays happen. So it's how the Titans offense is built and how our defense is still developing. We're not perfect.
Yeah, my biggest problem is I don't really care that the Chiefs lost this game. It's just how they lost it because, the Chiefs practically had this game in the palm of their hand and they choked. All they needed was that field goal to go through. All they needed was to run out the clock a little bit more, and this game would have been theirs.
They had also been making mistakes throughout the entire game. The first quarter was just penalty after penalty. And then Damian Williams had his fumble, and then Winchester had the terrible snap, which was not timed. And then, obviously, there's the blocked field goal. So it was mistake after mistake after mistake, which is not going to win you a football game, regardless of who's your quarterback or who's on your team. It's just the Titans played a cleaner game. The Chiefs, they beat themselves. It wasn't necessarily choking. It was just the game was – they didn't play at the level they should be. It was 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. It should have been at least 14-0. Tyreek Hill had a couple drops, which he should have had. Mahomes overthrew him on that very first throw, but other than that, Mahomes played a solid football game. And Damian Williams, other than his fumble, I think he had his best game of the season. Sure, you could say last week was his best game, but the majority of his yardage came off of that 90-yard run. So we're making an improvement, and I'd rather finish the season 9-7, get the wild card, and win the Super Bowl than finish 12-4. Everyone's beat up because now you're the second seed, and then we lose because of injuries. I'd rather get there and then have to worry about winning games than win every single game and get there and not be able to win.
But if you did get the wild card, maybe you get a home game if you win the division, but you still got to go on the road twice to even get to the Super Bowl. So, the biggest problem is that the Ravens are winning, the Patriots are winning, and I don't see this team getting the second seed. I think that the Chiefs pretty much had to go undefeated or at least just lose one more game to get that second seed. But I just don't see this Chiefs team, with the flaws that they have, losing any more than 2 or 3 more games. I think that right now they're banged up, and I don't see any really light at the end of the tunnel because, look, the defensive line is banged up. I'm going to acknowledge that. But also, the offensive line had a huge loss because they lost some of their backups. And Cam Irving continues to show that he is just awful. But, this offensive line's banged up. The defensive line is banged up. And like you said, there's injuries all around the field. But the biggest thing is that they lost this game when they really could have avoided losing. If the Chiefs literally just ran the ball a little bit more, or they would have been more aggressive. That was kind of my biggest thing with Andy Reid. If you're going to be so aggressive in throwing the ball, you got to finish. If it's 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, you got to go for it because guess what? this defense, even though it's kind of improved, I don't rely on them when the game's on the line. I don't think anybody should. This offense is still and probably always will be the thing that will win the Chiefs games. And so far, I mean, the offense just didn't do enough today. But, I mean, the defense has to be better. I saw a few blown coverages in the secondary. Rashad Fenton was pretty good for the most part, but, I mean, Charvarius Ward was kind of all over the place. Mo Claiborne's old and can't keep up. And so, right now I can just see all the problems and none of the bright sides to this Chiefs team.
Well, on offense, we do have to think that Mahomes was not 100%. I mean, sure, he put up 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and had a great completion percentage, but he still was hurt. I mean, had he not, I'm sure he would have run the football more like himself. I'm sure there were plays he would have said, "Coach, let's go for it." So let's keep in mind that he's still injured. And, I mean, you could see it. There were times where he second-guessed himself and was like, yeah, I shouldn't run that because I'm the future of the franchise. If I get hurt, I'm done. I'm not playing football anymore. But on defense, I think that since the pressure has kind of been on the front seven to step it up and stop the run, I think that the secondary has let that kind of go, oh, well, we've done our job, the last 8 weeks, however long it's been. And now since they're doing their job, we can kind of
Ease
ease
off.
off a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I think that the Chiefs, I will give them this. I would rather see Ryan Tannehill carve up the secondary than to see Derrick Henry run all over us. And to an extent, he basically did that, but there were still a few plays where Derrick Henry just got the ball, and it looked like a college guy going up against middle schoolers. I mean, it was bad. I mean, he was running all over our defense.
But,
And
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's how he plays against every defense. I mean, that's not just because the Chiefs are bad at stopping the run. It's just that's how he plays football. He's just a hard guy to tackle.
I know, but it's weird from going from Dalvin Cook, shutting down Dalvin Cook, probably one of the best rushers in the NFL, to going to Derrick Henry, who is very underrated, but I mean, come on, you got to shut him down somehow. And
Yeah, but you also have to keep in mind he's 6'2", which for a running back
it's
that's
big.
like a receiver's height. And then he's got like the body of a tight end almost. I mean, he's like Travis Kelce, but running the football. I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't
You can't
general.
stop that.
You need to stop him at the defensive line, and then the linebackers, the safeties and cornerbacks aren't going to tackle him. I'm not surprised that he was able to run over them, but I thought maybe that since Mahomes was back, uh, they'd be taking a lot more shots down the field, and our receivers and whatnot would obviously have bigger games, which, I mean, for the most part, they did. He spread the ball around the field. We had the running game going. It was overall a fairly decent game. It's
Yeah,
just
it
at the end
resulted
of the
in a
day,
loss.
it was too sloppy. They need to clean that up. And yeah, if they can do that, then they can go forward.
Yeah, this team really worries me going forward because guess what? I mean, some people might say this is a meaningless game, but every game in the NFL is not meaningless. I mean, every game is meaningful because I mean, every time there's something on the line. The Chiefs, even though it doesn't seem like it now, probably just blew the number 2 seed. And I mean, like you said, I'd rather see the Chiefs get in the playoffs, but I mean, right now I'm not confident with the team that they have because I mean, the NFL is the next man up league. You got to have guys that can come in, fill in, and win games. And we saw that, I mean, last week. We had guys that really didn't play a lot that came in and made a big impact. I mean, Mike Pennell, I had never even heard of him, but he came in, stopped the run. And that's kind of the guys that we need. And so, I mean, injuries, you can only start to blame them to an extent. You eventually got to basically succumb to your weakness and start to change. So, it was a bad day by the secondary. It was a bad day on defense, kind of overall. There were a few bright spots. I mean, Chris Jones was everywhere. There was some big pressures, some fumble recoveries, which at the end of the day is great. But, I mean, I've kind of got some flack over this over the years. But, I mean, my biggest takeaway is if you lose, you lose that week. I mean, that whole process of practicing and preparing for a team pretty much goes to waste if you choke in the fashion that the Chiefs did. So, that's my biggest problem. If the Chiefs would have lost this game by 2 touchdowns, I would have said great. Or not great, but the Chiefs can go back to the drawing board because at least at that point, it's like, well, we got blown out on the road by a team that really has no business blowing us out. But the way that they lost on the road with those circumstances, it makes me so mad.
But you also have to think that if Matt Moore was the quarterback, you wouldn't necessarily be disappointed with the way they finished if they finished in the manner they did today. It's just because we have Mahomes back. It's just because our offense can finally play like that high-powered offense that we've been hoping to have the
Well,
entire
no, no.
year.
If the Chiefs choked in that fashion, if Matt Moore was in that position and the Chiefs still lost this game, I would have been furious because at the end of the day, the Chiefs shot themselves in the foot. They
But
literally had a chance to close out the game
I
and they
think
failed to
everybody
do
would have
so.
said, had Mahomes been in there, there would have been one play, or there would have been more touchdowns, or there would have been more this and that. But in reality, it wasn't Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes played a solid game,
Yeah, Mahomes threw
and
for
it
over
just
400 yards, three
yeah it
touchdowns. He did what you want, but
and our defense did good in the first half. Even it's just that second half once they started getting tired and couldn't. I mean, we don't have depth really at many of our positions right now due to injuries. Like the defensive line, like we said multiple times, is just depleted. And then the secondaries, I mean, we don't really have like solidified guys right now other than Fuller, who's out, and Matthew, who's a safety. But then Thornhill, I didn't think he had the greatest game in the world. Ward blew a couple coverages. I mean, it just came down to people not doing their jobs, people not doing the simple things, not making tackles, not making um,
yeah.
big plays when there was opportunities. Frank Clark missed an interception. It was right to him. He should have had it.
So
I
this
mean,
game boils down to the Chiefs and not doing the simple things, not doing their job, and basically not finishing. So that's our take. The Chiefs lose on the road in Tennessee by a final score of 35-32 in Week 10. Hopefully the Chiefs can bounce back after the bye week and handle the Los Angeles Chargers. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you guys like these videos and want to support me, go click the link in the description and go support me on my Patreon. I would more than appreciate it. Thank you to Michael Hebner for joining me in this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the KC Sports Report by Michael Darcy.